truly always love when this happens. It's important this time of year to think about our plants' last minute, I'd say, watering needs as we head into the winter and the cooler months. And when I say last minute, I mean, we're talking mid-September right now. Some of us, myself included, maybe getting a little complacent, thinking, okay, this is the time we're winding down with our watering from the height of the summer, obviously, when we had 90 plus degree temperatures. I mean, we're in the 80s right now, typically for the high. But we don't want to neglect, our plants, especially the new ones that we maybe put in the spring, their watering needs going into the winter. That's just what I've seen online. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to give some of these plants a finger test, some of the shrubs, just check out what the soil moisture content level seems like to be around the base. From also what I've read, it should be like a sponge, like a wet sponge that's been wrung out. So a little bit more on the moist side than the dry side. So if you're talking about the dry side of things, you'll want to give those plants a good watering. This is an arborvitae I bought in the spring. I absolutely love it. It has this globe-like habit, very round with kind of reddish tips. I think it's just beautiful. I actually want to get some more of this for my garden bed. I want to use this as exhibit A of why you should pretty much check your plants every day, even though we're in September. I mean, I watered this yesterday for a good 5 to 10 minutes and already it's dried out. So this is still a little damp. I think I don't need to water this today, but definitely tomorrow if we don't get any rain, which is forecast this evening. These leaves on the rhododendron are curled up and we are still in the morning. So we know that this one needs water. If I go down here, move this pine mulch away and do a finger test. Yes, we are very dry. And this is actually one of those plants that tends to like to be on the drier side before you water it. Definitely has the tendency, as I've learned through trial and error, to get overwatered pretty quickly. So now is the time to water. Obviously, we've got some leaf loss here. Hopefully that's not too bad of a sign. I mean, this has actually been the most yellowing I've seen on this. So fingers crossed, pray for me that I keep this thing alive. Y'all, seriously, I've got to get a new hose. This one in my backyard, it just keeps doing that. What is that called? Kinking. A kink in the hose. It's so bad. And this is a newer hose. They obviously don't make them like they used to. The nice gentleman at the nursery told me, he said, rhododendrons, especially because of their shallow root system, they like to dry out, maybe even show some leaf stress like this, which of course stresses me out. But then they like a good solid watering. Not 1 hour has passed since I gave my rhododendron a good watering, and look at what's happened to the leaves. They completely unfurled. They were all curled up, clenching tight. Now it's totally soaked with water. I mean, this plant was crying out to me. Now this is one, my quick fire hydrangea, that is doing really well this time of year. I think the slight cool down is leading to some better growth. You can see I actually got this for 30 bucks at a local nursery. So got it half off. And I'm hoping by next spring, next summer, this thing is just huge. That would be great. My neighbors may think I'm crazy for this, but it's all about the wildlife for me, why I have let some of my weeds grow tall. Now, we're talking about a space just confined to my outdoor vegetable garden area. I've become, much more comfortable with letting my weeds grow wild because I just see the beneficial nature of their existence for the pollinators, for the birds. Again, this is just confined to my garden bed area. I've seen a lot of wasps. Don't want to get too close to that guy, but it looks like he is loving whatever is in these flower heads. You wouldn't want to do this if this was a yellow jacket, for instance. Yeah, that thing will come after you. Some lovely tomatoes down here. Yum. I have been scoping my yard because I've seen all these wasps, 4 wasp nests. Have not been able to notice any on the outside of the perimeter. I've checked gutters, areas around windows, anything that would, look like a nest. Definitely take the time to investigate that a little bit further, see if that's something you need to remove, especially if you have kids who are outside playing in the backyard, because I have seen some just really scary videos of, for instance, yellow jacket nest. Wow, those are terrifying. If you've ever been stung by one of those, which I have, you would know that that is a very painful experience. Another plant that I don't want to dig up yet, even though it is looking pretty weedy here in my vegetable garden, the arugula. You can see that that is flowered, which is great to see, and this can be food for pollinators, birds. Not the best looking thing, but we'll let it persist so that it can be of use to something. My mums that I bought at Trader Joe's actually are doing okay. They've kind of faded. I don't know what this is about. They've turned this orange color from a deep burgundy, trying to keep this soil as moist as possible, with the hopes that once it gets really cold, I can maybe plant these in the ground, have them come back as a perennial. Check out this Cuban oregano. It smells amazing. It reminds me of the smell of beer, actually. It smells really good. You can see it's got that vining habit. It is just amazing. I absolutely love this plant. I've got some propagating in some water, and I definitely plan to overwinter it in my house because of that nice, pleasant fragrance. Definitely can't, overwinter this in our zone 6B here in northern Kentucky because it is not winter hardy here. This here's an interesting plant. I bought at the plant sale in Cincinnati. It was actually labeled as a Gara, which is this plant, which you can see looks pretty different. I mean, there are a couple different types of different varieties of Gara. So I thought maybe this was a different variety, but it just completely looks like a different plant. And I looked it up, and yes, this is actually an evening primrose, which means that the flowers open at night or in the evening, which will be a nice little addition to this particular bed. It's kind of getting crispy here, but when I looked it up, the requirements for the evening primrose are full sun, sandy to well draining soil. So potentially it's getting too much water. My goal here is the long game. So the winter months are going to be very telling. They're going to be ones that are going to be building anticipation, of course, to see the outcome in spring of 2025. That's when some of these perennials will have reseeded themselves, potentially leading to a bigger spread. That's what I hope, depending, of course, on what type of plant. But yeah, I mean, this is a completely different project for me, one that will be somewhat challenging of, a waiting game there in the spring or in the winter, in those cold months. So I'm glad that you're here. I hope you'll subscribe, and there will be exciting things to come, definitely into next year.